How you doing, stargazers? Thanks for joining us for the Daily Space Weather, looking at some composite imagery here of the closest star, coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. This composite imagery here is SGO 131 plus 193 angstroms. Coronal holes here rotating through. We can expect some high-speed winds from those, possibly some geomagnetic storm conditions. Solar flaring's been kind of low. We have the likelihood of major coronal mass ejections very high right now, especially from this area up here in the northeast. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. Also got some interesting clips about whether or not the sun and or the galaxy are going to kill you. Here's the colorized magnetogram from SDO for the past, well, that's yesterday plus today, actually. And here's your SDO intensitygram. Couple new sunspot groups forming here. There's a little group that just formed here and one behind these new groups. So we'll have a couple more named groups today. The sunspot number will rise. The radio flux will continue to rise as well. And newsflash, if you're not a member of SureMed, consider becoming one. It's the American Better Health Organization, the American Better Health Organization, DBA SureMed, focused on improving the health of its members. I'm a member. And it's worth it just for the doctors by phone. It also allows you to get group insurance, such as accident, critical illness, hospital indemnity, life insurance, dental, vision, and lots more. The base membership alone gives you doctors by phone, counselors by phone, even virtual veterinarians are covered with just a base membership. It's quite a deal, really. You can find links to that on the homepage at smashomash.com, and welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. In 2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. Yeah, I've been getting in trouble on social media since before social media was a thing. I assume that's why we're shadow banned. If you think Elon is going to fix the censorship on Twitter, by the way, think again. If you want to support the channel via subscription memberships, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team. Links on the homepage and below the video to that. Smashomash.com/Smash Team. Thank you to our Gold and Silver Smash Team members especially. There is also a Bronze membership available over there. That's free. We send out disaster alerts and lots more. Look for some Gold and Silver member-only posts coming soon. Another link you can find on the homepage and at smashomash.com/Smash Team is a link to our Hemp Lucid site, our latest affiliate/sponsor. It's simply the best, better than the other alternatives, of which there are a trillion. But check it out, the Delta 8 gummy cubes. We'll have to be doing a review on those pretty soon. I'll say this, they are pretty potent. You can also find links to our merch shop below the video, as well as on the homepage at smashomash.com. You'll find a link that says Smasho Merch on there, and that will show you what we are peddling. It's not just bikes. It's also some choice products. So today's featured product might be a little controversial to you. We almost hope that it is, and we certainly hope that accountability comes, because it always does. So today's featured product is, to that end, the Tony Fauci Face of Evil products. Tony Fauci, fraudster. When we noticed a pattern of fraud developing in December of 2020, we decided to make some products citing these facts, because, hey, 2 data points does not make a pattern, but 3 data points of fraud does. What's the difference between fraud and misrepresentation? Intent. If you intentionally misrepresent material facts, you've committed fraud. It's literally the definition, which makes the good doctor, the Messiah of all mankind, Tony Fauci, fraudster, a face of evil. Press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. You can find the red bubble shop right there on the YouTube homepage and so on. Check our playlists for videos besides space weather and meteorology. And let's get back to it, as we've got a new volcano showing up on the list. It's Mali Samayachik. Yeah, Mali Samayachik on the Kamchatka Peninsula, now exploding and producing a 12,000 foot plume of volcanic ash. There it is. It's blowing out to the southwest. The southeast there into the Pacific Ocean from the Kamchatka Peninsula. Karimsky also erupting on that same Kamchatka Peninsula. 15,000 foot ash plume from Karimsky. Tal on one of the Filipino islands of Luzon, also erupting there. 2,000 foot ash plume there from Tal. 7,000 foot ash plume from Ibu in Indonesia. Krakatau, 2,000 foot ash plume. Semeru, flight level 130. It's a 13,000 foot ash plume over East Java, Indonesia from Semeru. Headed down to Central America, we see in Guatemala Fuego exploding, flight level 150. Nevado del Ruiz exploding in South America, that's Colombia. Flight level 210 from Nevado del Ruiz. Flight level 220 over Ecuador from Sangay. Flight level 160 from Revenador as it explodes. 16,000 foot ash plume from Revenador and a 24,000 foot ash plume from Sabancaya in Peru. It's exploding. It's a flight level 240. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Next, looking at global seismicity here, we've got a little higher number of flakes. We've got a lot of flakes. We've got a lot of flakes and a higher number of quakes, especially around the western Pacific. So in the Kuril Islands, we see a 5.2. Japan, we see a 5.0. No big quakes. A little swarm of quakes there in the Caribbean. So 5.0 at Japan. A 5.2 at Papua New Guinea. If we miss anything while we scroll the list, leave us a comment and let us know what we've missed. So a higher number of quakes here. Keep in mind, folks, any earthquake can be a foreshock. So consider that. It looks like the largest of the past 24 was this 5.4 east of the North Island of New Zealand. That one came in at 3:55 this morning on a Friday, October 28th. Congratulations on surviving another week, almost, so far. And congratulations on surviving a global pandemic, so far. Well done. Well done. So here's some more composite imagery from SDO. This is 335 and 211 angstroms. This Mickey Mouse-shaped coronal hole is now looking more like a duck. Check it out. Tell me that doesn't look like a duck. Here's the body. There's the tail. And there's the duck head. It straight up looks like a duck. Anyway, here's 304 angstroms, ionized helium. And I would note up in the northeast there is a huge plume of plasma up here. Some of that's going to eject soon. Will it be earthly directed? Well, I doubt it. Will much of it splash back down toward the chromosphere? We'll have to stay tuned to look. The radio flux has come up a little bit to 122 solar flux units, I believe. There we go. There's the 1 year graph of the radio flux. It's that black line. And here, 130. We're up to 130 now for the radio flux. So up to here at this point. As we go over that apparent support level there, around 120 solar flux units. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard forecasting some geomagnetic storm conditions late in the day on Saturday, October 29th. A little bit of geomagnetic unrest there continuing through October 30th as well. As we approach Halloween, maybe we'll see some Halloween aurora. We'll have to see what happens. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from space for the past 4 hours. It's our Geospace Magnetosphere movie. And thanks for commenting about it yesterday, Brett. It's not quite as picturesque as imagery of the sun, although maybe we will consider doing that for our live streaming console. Include this as well as maybe the solar imagery, and maybe we can find some other auto-updating features that we could just stream all day just to sort of archive the data. That's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Geospace Delta B changes to Earth B field ground magnetic perturbations. Scaled in nanotesla magnetic flux density. It's the last 4 hours. By the way, we'll be featuring another YouTube channel, one which some people might consider competition to this one later in the video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And this played most of the way through. Let's let it play all the way through, just for the sake of having a full 4-hour run. Yes, we'll be talking about some nonsense a little bit earlier in the video, a little bit later in the video. Pardon me, I'm experiencing temporal lobe malfunctions. All right, so here's the KP index, the planetary K index, a measurement of global geomagnetism. KP index at 2.67 at the moment. I guess you could call that a KP3. We'll call it 2.67. And moving to the real-time solar wind, we've just seen an uptick in the solar wind density and a downtick in the solar wind speed. So that looks like it could be the onset of a coronal hole high-speed stream already, the density wave at the front of it. We'll see how high that goes. I would expect it to go to about 30 if it was the full coronal hole high-speed stream density wave. Have to see what happens. At the moment, we're about 14.3 protons per cubic centimeter out there at Lagrange point 1. Solar wind speed has dropped to 356 kilometers per second. Next to magnetic data, there's the GOES magnetometer for the GOES 16 and GOES 17. Little arc jet moment there as the GOES 16 maneuvers to maintain its geosynchronous near equatorial orbit. And here is the heliospheric current sheet. Almost the entire north solar polar field is oriented toward the Earth at the moment. We see some interesting features here. We're going to get to it. First, our line of sight field plot. There's the sun's B field in blue. And next to coronal holes. So what's interesting here is we've got, check it out, we've got North Pole coronal hole at the north heliographic pole. We've got a North Pole coronal hole at the south heliographic pole. And a large series of coronal holes facing Earth as well. So got a lot of North Pole oriented magnetism here at the moment. It'll be evident in the 211 angstroms wavelength from SDO. So almost the entire north solar polar field at the moment pointed at Earth. The solar radio jets are kind of oriented in your direction at the moment. So there you go. There's our duck-shaped coronal hole. And all of those coronal holes there are North Pole oriented. Next, let's move to sunspots. As we watch Solar Cycle 25 progress in epic fashion on the channel, here is the sunspot scenario. We're going to have two more named groups. So there'll be a named group down here. That'll be 3134 probably, and then we'll have 3135 back here behind these two groups. Likelihood of solar flares goes up a little bit with that. Also, as these groups down here in the southwest set, that increases the likelihood of large flares as well. There's your SDO magnetogram for the past 24 hours. And here is the SDO continuum for the last 24 hours. And lots more information to blast through here. So let's look at solar flares. No spikes in the proton flux, no relativistic particles. Solar flaring here flatlined at a background level below a sea level. So only a couple minor intensifications. The likelihood of large flares is certainly there. So we see a lot of activity in the northeast, and we see some setting sunspots in the southwest. Those two corners are the most likely places to see flares. Down here and up here. So that's 94 angstroms. Here's 131 angstroms. At the moment, not a lot of flaring to see on these wavelengths. I think the most likely place to see a major flare is up here in the northeast. There is a lot of plasma suspended up there, and some of it will be ejecting soon. Next, let's take a look at some astronomy stuff. Yeah, some astronomy stuff. So, I put on my headset here because I have to actually hear some idiotic things stated. So this is what's going on above our heads over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And let's talk about some nonsense that's going on YouTube. Now, of course, everybody knows there are some overpaid channels. Let's talk about possibly the most overpaid channel in the history of YouTube. Here we go. It's our pal Ben Davidson. Yes, our pal Ben Davidson. He is pretending to be a scientist. And so let's cover some of the nonsense that Ben has recently said. This is from his video last night on October 27th. Hi, Ben, if you're watching. Oh, hi. Doing a fine job there. And I'm going to translate Ben's nonsense for you here, but let me play a clip.
How sure are we that it is exactly a 12,000-year cycle? Well, that's an excellent question. It also doesn't matter.
Now, Ben claims that the galaxy is going to make the sun explode every 12,000 years because he doesn't understand astrophysics. And what he's saying is, how do we know it's a 12,000-year cycle? And the answer is that it doesn't matter. So just let that sink in. His claimed disaster cycle, caused by a fictional, imaginary galactic current sheet, the length of the cycle doesn't matter. Let that sink in. Let's continue on.
The best evidence we have does suggest 12,000 years, even though, that might be a little off. What we do know.
Now, just to translate the nonsense that he just said, when he's stating it might be a little off, what he means by that is that it might be off by thousands of years. So, like every doomsday cult throughout history, what he's idiotically stating is that we know it's going to happen exactly around the year 2035 or some nonsense like that, but it might be a little off. And when he says a little off, he's talking about margins of error of thousands of years. So you're talking 30, 40, 50% margin of error on his nonsense? Let's continue on.
Is that the cycle is separated by equivalent amounts every time. So yes, that could be 10,000 years. Yes, that could be 15,000 years. But it just doesn't matter. We are that exact equivalent time away again right now.
It could be 10,000 years. It could be 15,000 years. Therefore, it's going to happen exactly in the year 2035 or whatever he's saying. I'll end that there, as that's a lot of time to be looking at that guy's face. Continuing on to some facts. Here's a solar system forecast for the next 7 days. We will have a gibbous waxing moon by the 4th of November. We hope you're having a delightful day here. Is it trick-or-treat night where you're located? Let us know how the rules happen there. Does it happen on Halloween? Does it happen on the Friday closest to Halloween? How does it work? How does it go? How does it work? Next, looking at some coronagraphs here. And there is a little bit of CME activity there yesterday. Nothing major. There's 101 frames. Those do not appear to be earthly directed coronal mass ejections. And here's today's imagery. Only 8 frames there. Let's move to Stereo A and the Soho Lasco C3. The imagery here on the left is derived from Lagrangian point 5, chasing the Earth, seeing space weather ahead. It's Stereo A. And on the right, we've got the Soho Lasco C3 here at Lagrange 1. There you see that on the right side. And for you new viewers, Earth would be off in this orientation from the perspective of Stereo A. It would be behind you if you were at Lagrange point 1 riding the Soho Lasco C3 and looking toward the aperture. Basically, we don't see any indication that there are any Earth-directed CMEs here. We do see Venus moving into frame on Stereo A, giving you some idea of the angular difference between Lagrange point 1 and Lagrange point 5. Anyway, here's the last 24 hours. And you see this huge plume of plasma up here in the northeast. That's some part of that is going to eject in the next 24 to 48 hours. I would say even sooner than that, most likely. Here's a closer image of that. Some of that will eject. Some of that will probably also collapse. And that's part of the reason why I think flares are most likely in the northeastern limb. Remember, folks, solar flares and coronal mass ejections are completely different phenomenon. We're not sure that one causes the other one, so we don't say it's a causal relationship. There is certainly a correlation. However, solar flares are not required to see large coronal mass ejections. One thing that helps is filaments. So let's take a look at the ground-based solar observatory here from Lermonth, Australia. And there are now a huge number of filaments on the earthly side of the solar disk. Huge dark features here and down here, lots of filaments, and more filaments. So likelihood of Earth-directed coronal mass ejections is kind of high. However, the ones expected from up here are not likely to be earthly directed because those are largely around. Those are, they're more oriented towards stereo A than they are the Earth, and even stereo A is not going to have a full view of those. So here you can see some prominences happening from the GOES 16 SUVI. This is what we usually stream on the Twitch channel. If you're not familiar with it, it's twitch.tv/smashomash. Huge prominence happening here in the western limb as well. Check it out. That's right near the equator too. So what's interesting about this cycle, folks, is we're seeing sunspots at high latitudes and low latitudes, and a slow progression of the solar polar field reversal process. There's a long way to go in this solar cycle. We are nowhere near solar maximum. And if you think it's a grand solar minimum, I suggest you go back to the drawing board because you're incorrect. And rather than double down on your nonsense, you should probably abandon your theory, because if the observations don't back your theory, it's probably wrong and should probably be abandoned. That's the last 24 hours from SDO 171 Actions as we move to our bonus features segment. Surface charging hazards here a little bit around places like Mexico and the Central Pacific Ocean. Those are minor surface charging hazards caused by low-energy electrons on the surface of satellites, hence the term surface charging. There is the electron flux. We can expect this to remain kind of low here, as there is a coronal hole wind stream likely striking now. So cancel these. Those are not happening. Those are going to be down here. These are going to be a little bit lower than NOAA forecasting there, most likely. It's going to be a pretty beefy coronal hole high-speed stream. So here is the electron flux for the past year from Solon.info. We'll show the ionosphere's vibrational frequency next. This is where the electron flux is measured by those GOES satellites. This is the vibrational frequency of the bridge between Earth and space. Here is the anomalygram of that same set of data. That's the anomaly from 30-day median. We show that because you might not be used to looking at the ionogram, and I don't blame you. It's a little bit hard to understand. But that's what's going on at the moment. We got some low-frequency anomalies over Taiwan at 10:15 Universal Time. Next, the total electron content forecast. It'll show you the electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. That's located at about 12,500 miles of altitude, about 12,500 miles of altitude there. Here's the electron count from the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt down to your handset. And huge electron anomalies happening over North America once again. This is like an ongoing thing. Is it possible that the GPS errors at that Dallas airport were caused by the electron flux? Well, it is possible. I'm wondering, I haven't heard any follow-up stories on that, so I'm not sure if anybody was actively jamming the aircraft GPS on purpose. I assume the FCC would have probably figured that out, as it's kind of important. But in any case, we are seeing continued major anomalies here over North America, also Greenland. seeing high electron contents. Despite winter approaching. So here we have the latest colorized magnetogram and intensitygram. Again, we've got some new sunspots back here. There's a new group. That'll get a name. There's also a group down here. That'll get a name. Those are both beta gamma class sunspot groups. So that's always interesting. Yeah, so some new sunspot groups. It's a solar uptick commencing, as well as likelihood of some possible weekend aurorae. So that's always interesting. And let's take a look at the colorized magnetogram plus 171 angstroms wavelength, as it'll be pretty picturesque. Since our job on these videos is to provide the most detailed space weather in the known universe and the most detailed imagery of the closest star seen here. So thanks for stargazing with us. It's time to move to the realm of meteorology. We hope you understand astrophysics. We hope you understand Earth physics. Because if you know how to read a weather map, you can forecast your weather, folks. There's more than enough information for you to forecast your weather. If your weatherman is wrong, it's probably just because he's forecasting for the broadcast area. So let's get to it. Oh my God, the Earth is burning up. Look at the ultraviolet. Oh no, it's ultraviolet light because it's noontime there. So that's the UV, the likely UV index. It's the ultraviolet index and erythemal dose rate. Now, if you look at this high UV level down here, that probably is because of the ozone hole, if you're wondering. You'll see a much smaller UV index in the northern hemisphere because the ozone hole is much bigger over Antarctica than it is over the North Pole. All right, so let's take a look at our normally scheduled products here. Let me refresh. That's refreshing. There is the surface wind scenario for the eastern world. Strong low here off the coast of the Philippines. Here are the jet streams of this portion of the planet, the 250 hectopascal winds. Here are the jet streams of the western world. We've got a huge kink in the jet stream here over the central U.S. Surface winds are looking like this. Surface winds of the central world are looking like this. Here are the jet streams of the central world. And let's move on to check out the Atlantic Ocean sunrise. There you go. Now, yes, I know, it is a shame that NASA does not show the true images of the fact that the Earth is croissant-shaped. But you could actually go outside and look up and see the clouds that are depicted here. But, you know, we would, of course, prefer if NASA would project the imagery of the Earth onto a croissant-shaped product instead of this fake sphere-shaped product. You're welcome. You're welcome for everybody who thinks that, you know, that I believe that the Earth is shaped like a sphere. What are you, crazy? Everybody knows the Earth is shaped like a croissant. Bunch of idiots. You believe everything NASA says. You're a bunch of Nazi believing dummies who believe science dogma. Folks, Earth is croissant shaped, okay? Just come to grips with this fact. Here's your weather.gov map, and we're going to take a look at some snow here. So let's take a look at snow because we like to do occasional updates here. So the snow extent is actually a little bit on the low side right now. So we're kind of right in the middle of the meaty part of the range there. There's one plus or minus one standard deviation. There are those blue lines. Kind of just right in the meaty part of the range of snow extent for this time of year. For snow water equivalent, we're above one standard deviation over normal, probably because of massive amounts of snow constantly being deposited in Greenland and then not melting in the summer. And then you've got over here for the snow mass balance, also more than one standard deviation above the 1982 to 2012 average. Median? Mean? I don't know, one of those things. Anyway, the point is, It is more than 1 standard deviation above normal for this time of year. And let's continue on to some forecasts. So here is your pressure and precipitation forecast based on the GFS model for the lower 48. We show 72-hour forecasts because they tend to be accurate. We don't show like 2 and 3 week forecasts because they tend to be utter nonsense. We'll also show the temperature forecast based on the same model. Here are the temperature contour, the shaded temperatures for the GFS model for the next 72 hours. And next we'll show a wind map. So here's a wind map. There's just the surface winds. One of the many products you can find on windy.com. They got a great mobile app. You can look at all kinds of different things. You can even look at things like the ozone layer. One of the many sources of alarmism. It's very thin over Antarctica, if you're wondering. So you can always put down a little marker here, and there you go, 171 DU there. And up here, 376 DU, and up here, 287. Anyway, the point is the ozone layer varies. And it's not fully understood, I don't believe, at this point. Let's continue on. Here is your NASA GOES lightning mapper, and some heavy lightning there over Texas. And it looks like it might be continuing. Let's check a real-time lightning map to see the terrestrial strikes. So some heavy weather around the Gulf Coast, as we forecasted yesterday. Off the coast of Galveston there, some thunder rolling in for sure. Yowzers. That is some heavy lightning. And if you see a water spout, hit us up on Twitter, twitter.com/smashamatch. If you don't have a Twitter, create a Twitter. Not because Elon Musk is going to cure censorship, because it's a great place to exchange information if you're smart enough to not get banned. It's usually not that hard to refrain from getting banned. We've also got some active cells here west of Dallas. Shout out to our viewers from the Lone Star State. Shout out to our viewers from Germany, who think that everything is bigger in Germany. Next, our U.S. Doppler radar map. There's the full 50-state view. Here is the lower 48 view. And let's go to the infrared satellite, the 3.9 nanometer infrared satellite, showing clouds and fog over a largely dark nation. Here's the water vapor map. That should clear things up. And you've got some stagnating moisture there. This dry mass of air over here, that's not dry mass of air. This dry mass of air right here is a high pressure system in comparison to this moist air here, which is a low pressure system. And this is not really moving very much to the east as the jet stream normally would move things because of this kink in the jet stream. So there's this kink in the jet stream like this right now. And that's what's causing that weather to stagnate there. It's kind of stuck in that zone. Hopefully that clears things up. Here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. A series of facts, all tied together, and zero propaganda. There is the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog, and there is the water vapor map showing, well, water vapor, like all of it. Thanks for tuning in. The end is not near. Our finest days lie ahead, and may that solar wind be out your back.